This is Buddhist Books Podcast, episode 208, Tipiṭaka, part 134, in which we will continue reading Mahāvagga I, the first part of the Great Division. Mahāvagga means Great Division. And this is from the first basket, or the Vinaya Piṭaka, the discipline basket of the three baskets, the Tipiṭaka, translated from Pali into English. This is pre-sectarian early Buddhism. And hope everyone's doing well. This is part 5 of Mahāvagga. If you would like to start with the beginning of Mahāvagga, you can click here. That's the Mahāvagga playlist. And of course, before that, there was 120-something episodes of rules for monks and rules for nuns, which are not as dull as they sound. There's some interesting stories about how the rules were established, some drama going on. There's interesting characters, interesting monks and nuns that you get to know throughout the course of hearing about the rules. So if you want to start at the very beginning of the Tipiṭaka and hear all those rules, you can click there. And without further ado, I will get started with today's reading. Then the Lord, having stayed at Gaya Head for as long as he found suiting, set out on tour for Rajagaha. That's Rajgir. In present day, it's called Rajgir. Rajagaha, together with the large order of monks, with all those same 1,000 monks who had formerly been matted hair ascetics. Then the Lord, walking on tour, in due course, arrived at Rajagaha. The Lord stayed there at Rajagaha in the palm grove pleasure ground in the Tipiṭaka shrine. Then King Seniya Bimbisara of Magadha heard, quote, "Verily, the recluse Gautama, the son of the Sakyans, who has gone forth from the Sakyan clan, has reached Rajagaha and is staying at Rajagaha in the Palm Grove pleasure ground in the Tipiṭaka shrine. A lovely reputation has gone forth concerning the Lord Gautama thus. He is indeed Lord, perfected one, fully awakened one, endowed with knowledge and conduct, welfarer, knower of the worlds, unrivaled charioteer of men to be tamed, teacher of devas and mankind, awakened one, Lord. Having realized them by his own super knowledge, he makes known this world with its devas, with its maras, with its brahmas, creatures with devas and men, with recluses and brahmins. He teaches Dhamma, lovely at the beginning, lovely in the middle, lovely at the ending. He explains with the spirit and the letter the Brahma faring completely fulfilled and wholly pure. Good indeed it were to see perfected ones like this." End quote. Then King Seniya Bimbisara of Magadha, surrounded by 12 myriad Brahmins and homeowners of Magadha, approached the Lord. Having greeted the Lord, he sat down at a respectful distance. Then some of these 12 myriad Brahmins and householders of Magadha, having greeted the Lord, sat down at a respectful distance. Some exchanged greetings with the Lord, and having exchanged greetings of friendliness and courtesy, they sat down at a respectful distance. Some, having saluted the Lord with joined palms, sat down at a respectful distance. Some, having shouted out their name and clan, before the Lord, sat down at a respectful distance. Some, having become silent, sat down at a respectful distance. Then it occurred to those 12 myriad Brahmins and householders of Magadha, quote, "Now does the great recluse fare the Brahma faring under Kasyapa of Uruvela, or does Kasyapa of Uruvela fare the Brahma faring under the great recluse?" End quote. Then the Lord, knowing with his mind the reasoning in the minds of those 12 myriad Brahmins and householders of Magadha, addressed Kasyapa of Uruvela with the verses, quote, "What hast thou seen, O dweller in Uruvela, that thou, known as emaciate, hast abandoned the parentheses sacred end parentheses fire? I ask thee about this matter, Kasyapa. Hast thou abandoned thy fire implements?" End quote. Quote, assuming Kasyapa is responding, "The sacrifices speak of forms and sounds, also of tastes, pleasures, and women. Knowing that, quote within quotes, this is dross, end quote within quotes, among affections, therefore I delighted not in sacrifice, in offering," end quote. Lord Buddha replies, quote, "But if your mind delights not there, Kasyapa," end quote, the Lord said, quote, "among forms, sounds, and also tastes, then in the world of devas and men, what does your mind delight in? Kasyapa, tell me that," end quote. Kasyapa replies, quote, "When I had seen the path, peaceful, without substrate, stainless, not attached to sensations becoming, not becoming otherwise, where one cannot be led by others. In consequence, I delighted not in sacrifice, in offering," end quote. Then the venerable Kasyapa of Uruvela, rising from his seat, having arranged his upper robe over one shoulder, having inclined his head towards the Lord's feet, spoke thus to the Lord, quote, "Lord, the Lord is my teacher. I am a disciple. Lord, the Lord is my teacher. I am a disciple." End quote. Then it occurred to those 12 myriad Brahmins and householders of Magadha, quote, "Kasyapa of Uruvela fares the Brahma faring under the great recluse." End quote. Then the Lord, knowing by mind the reasoning in the minds of these 12 myriad Brahmins and householders of Magadha, talked a progressive talk, 3 dots, stopping the way. "And as a clean cloth without black specks will easily take a dye, even so as the 12 myriad Brahmins and householders of Magadha, with Bimbisara at their head, were, parentheses, sitting, end parentheses, in those very seats, Dhamma vision, dustless, stainless, arose to them, that, quote, whatever is of the nature to uprise, all that is of the nature to stop, end quote. And 1 myriad declared themselves to be lay followers. Then King Bimbisara of Magadha, having seen Dhamma, attained Dhamma, known Dhamma, plunged into Dhamma, having crossed over doubt, put away uncertainty, having attained without another's help to full confidence in the teacher's instruction, spoke thus to the Lord, quote, "Formerly, Lord, when I was a young man, I had 5 ambitions. These are now realized by me. Formerly, Lord, when I was a young man, it occurred to me, quote within quotes, might I be anointed into kingship, end quote within quotes. This was my first ambition, Lord. It has now been realized by me. And, quote within quotes, might the perfected one, the fully awakened one, come into my realm. End quote within quotes. This, Lord, was my second ambition. It has now been realized by me. Quote within quotes, that I might pay homage to this Lord. End quote within quotes. This, Lord, was my third ambition. It has now been realized by me. And, quote within quotes, may that Lord teach me Dhamma. End quote within quotes. This, Lord, was my fourth ambition. It has now been realized by me. And, quote within quotes, might I understand that Lord's Dhamma. End quote within quotes. This, Lord, was my fifth ambition. It has now been realized by me. Formerly, Lord, when I was a young man, I had these 5 ambitions. They are now realized by me. Excellent Lord, even Lord, as one might set upright what has been upset, 3 dots. Even so is Dhamma explained in many a figure by the Lord. So I, Lord, go to the Lord, as refuge and to Dhamma, and to the order of monks. Lord, may the Lord accept me as a disciple gone for refuge from this day forth for as long as life lasts. And Lord, may the Lord consent to a meal with me tomorrow, together with the order of monks. End quote. The Lord consented by becoming silent. Then King Senia Bimbisara of Magadha, having understood the Lord's consent, rising from his seat, having greeted the Lord, departed, keeping his right side towards him. Then King Senia Bimbisara of Magadha, having had sumptuous food, solid and soft, prepared, at the end of that night had the time announced to the Lord, saying, quote, Lord, it is time, the meal is ready. End quote. Then the Lord, having dressed in the morning, taking his bowl and robe, entered Rajagaha together with the large order of monks, with all those same 1,000 monks who had formerly been matted-haired ascetics. Now at that time, Lord of the Devas, having assumed the form of a Brahmin youth, walked in front of the order of monks with the Lord at its head, singing these verses. Quote, the tamed with the tamed, with the former matted-hair ascetics, the well-freed with the well-freed. The Lord, beautifully colored like a golden ornament, entered Rajagaha, the freed with the freed, the former matted-hair ascetics, the well-freed with the well-freed. The Lord, 3 dots. The crossed over with the crossed over, with the former matted-hair ascetics, the well-freed with the well-freed. The Lord, 3 dots. He of the 10 states, of the 10 powers, versed in the 10 things and furnished with the 10. He, the Lord, surrounded by 1,000, entered Rajagaha. End quote. People, having seen Sakya, Lord of the Devas, spoke thus, quote, indeed, this Brahmin youth is lovely. Indeed, this Brahmin youth is good to look upon. Indeed, this Brahmin youth is charming. Whose now is this Brahmin youth? End quote. When they had spoken thus, Sakya, Lord of the Devas, addressed these people with a verse, quote, he who is steadfast, tamed in every way, awakened, peerless among men, perfected, welfarer. I am his attendant in the world." End quote. Then the Lord approached the dwelling of King Saniya Bimbisara of Magadha. Having approached, he sat down on the appointed seat, together with the order of monks. Then King Saniya Bimbisara of Magadha, with his own hand having offered, having satisfied the order of monks with the awakened one at its head, with sumptuous food, solid and soft, when the Lord had eaten and had withdrawn his hand from the bowl, sat down at a respectful distance. As he was sitting down at a respectful distance, it occurred to King Saniya Bimbisara of Magadha, quote, "Now, where could the Lord stay that would be neither too far from the village nor too near, suitable for coming and going, accessible for people whenever they want, not crowded by day, having little noise at night, little sound, without folk's breath, haunts of privacy, suitable for seclusion," end quote. Then it occurred to King Saniya Bimbisara of Magadha, quote, "Now this bamboo grove of ours, a pleasure park, is neither too far from a village, suitable for seclusion. Suppose I were to give the bamboo grove, a pleasure park, to the order of the monks with the awakened one at its head." End quote. Then King Saniya Bimbisara of Magadha, having taken a ceremonial vessel made of gold, dedicated it to the Lord, saying, quote, "May I, Lord, give this bamboo grove a pleasure park." Give this bamboo grove, a pleasure park, to the order of monks with the awakened one at its head, end quote. The Lord accepted the park. Then the Lord, having gladdened, rejoiced, roused, delighted King Saniya Bimbisara of Magadha with talk on Dhamma, having risen from his seat, departed. Then the Lord, on this occasion, having given reason to talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, "Monks, I allow a park," end quote. At that time, the wanderer Sanjaya was residing in Rajagaha, together with a great company of wanderers, with 250 wanderers. Now at that time, Shariputra and Moggallana fared the Brahma faring under the wanderer Sanjaya, and an agreement came to be formed by these. Quote, "Whoever attains the deathless first, let him announce it," end quote. Then the venerable Assaji, having dressed in the morning, taking his bowl and robe, entered Rajagaha for alms food. He was pleasing whether he was approaching or departing, whether he was looking in front or looking behind, whether he was drawing in or stretching out, parentheses, his arm, end parentheses. His eyes were cast down. He was possessed of pleasant behavior. The wanderer Shariputra saw the venerable Assaji walking for alms food in Rajagaha, pleasing whether he was approaching, possessed of pleasant behavior, and seeing him, it occurred to him, quote, "This is one of those monks who are indeed perfected ones in the world, or who have entered on the way to perfection. What now if I, having approached this monk, should ask him, quote within quotes, 'On account of whom are you, your reverence, gone forth? Or who is your teacher? Or whose Dhamma do you profess?' End quote within quotes. End quote. Then it occurred to the wanderer Shariputra, quote, "But it is not the right time to question this monk. He has gone in among the houses. He is walking for alms food. What now if I should follow close after this monk who has learnt a way for those who need it?" End quote. Then the Venerable Assaji, having walked for alms food in Rajagaha, taking his alms bowl, returned. Then the wanderer Shariputra approached the Venerable Assaji. Having approached, he exchanged greetings with the Venerable Assaji. Having exchanged courteous and friendly greetings, he stood at a respectful distance. As he was standing at a respectful distance, the wanderer Shariputra spoke thus to the Venerable Assaji. Quote, "Your Reverence, your faculties are quite pure. Your complexion very bright, very clear. On account of whom, Your Reverence, have you gone forth? Or who is your teacher? Or whose Dhamma do you profess?" End quote. Quote, "There is, friend, a great recluse, a son of the Sakyans, gone forth from a Sakyan family. I have gone forth on account of this Lord, and this Lord is my teacher, and I profess this Lord's Dhamma." End quote. Quote, "But what is the doctrine of your Reverence's teacher? What does he point out?" End quote. Quote, "Now I, friend, am new, not long gone forth, fresh to this Dhamma and discipline. I am not able to teach you Dhamma in full, but I can tell you its purport briefly." End quote. Then the wanderer Shariputra spoke thus to the Venerable Assaji. Quote, "So be it, Your Reverence. Tell me little or tell me much, parentheses, but, and parentheses, in any case, explain to me its purport. I want just its purport. Why should you make a great elaboration?" End quote. Then the Venerable Assaji uttered this terse expression of Dhamma to the wanderer Shariputra. Quote, "Those things which proceed from a cause, of these the truth finder has told the cause. At that which is their stopping, the great recluse has such a doctrine." End quote. When the wanderer Shariputra had heard this terse explanation of Dhamma, there arose Dhamma vision, dustless, stainless, that, quote, "Whatever is of the nature to uprise, all that is of the nature to stop." End quote. He said, quote, "If this is indeed Dhamma, you have penetrated as far as the sorrowless path, unseen, neglected for many myriads of aeons." End quote. Then the wanderer Shariputra approached the wanderer Moggallana. Then the wanderer Moggallana saw the wanderer Shariputra coming in the distance, and seeing the wanderer Shariputra, he spoke thus, quote, "Friend, your faculties are quite pure, your complexion very bright, very clear. Can it be that you, friend, have attained the deathless?" End quote. Quote, "Yes, friend, I have attained the deathless." End quote. Quote, "But how did you, friend, attain the deathless?" End quote. Quote, "Now I, friend, saw the Venerable Assaji walking for alms food in Rajagaha, pleasing whether he was approaching or departing." Three dots, parentheses, it's the same as earlier when they were saying all that stuff about how pleasing Assaji is. End parentheses, three dots. Quote, "Then, friend, it occurred to me," quote within quotes, "but it is not the right time to question this monk." Three dots, it's the same as the part where he was talking about how he was going to follow him. End parentheses, three dots, quote, "Then, friend, the Venerable Assaji uttered this terse expression of Dhamma," quote within quotes, those things which proceed from a cause, of these the truth finder has told the cause, and that which is their stopping, the great recluse has such a doctrine. And quote within quotes, end quotes. When the wanderer Moggallana had heard this terse expression of Dhamma, three dots, parentheses, it's the same stuff as when they were talking about Shariputra, end parentheses, three dots. Then the wanderer Moggallana spoke thus to the wanderer Shariputra, quote, "Let us go, friend, to the Lord." Parentheses for and parentheses, this Lord is the teacher for us. End quote. Quote, "Friend, these 250 wanderers are staying here because of us, looking to us. Let us consult them so that they may do what they think, parentheses, right, end parentheses, end quote." Then Shariputra and Moggallana approached these wanderers. Having approached, they spoke thus to these wanderers, quote, "We are going, friends, to the Lord," parentheses for and parentheses, the Lord is the teacher for us, end quote. Quote, "We, venerable ones, are staying here because of you, looking to you. If the venerable ones will fare the Brahma faring under the great recluse, all of us will fare the Brahma faring under the great recluse." End quote. Then Shariputra and Moggallana approached the wanderer Sanjaya. Having approached, they spoke thus to the wanderer Sanjaya, quote, "Sir, we are going to the Lord," parentheses for and parentheses, this Lord is the teacher for us, end quote. Quote, "No, friends, do not go. We three will one and all look after this group," end quote. And a second time, three dots, we can assume that Shariputra and Moggallana repeated themselves. They're going to go with Lord Buddha. And a third time, three dots. Quote, "Three dots. We'll look after this group," end quote. Then Shariputra and Moggallana, taking those 250 wanderers, approached the bamboo grove. But on that selfsame spot, hot blood issued from the mouth of Sanjaya the wanderer. The Lord saw Shariputra and Moggallana coming in the distance. Seeing them, he addressed the monks, saying, quote, "Monks, these two friends, Kolika and Upatissa, are coming. This pair of disciples will be my chief, my eminent pair." Oh, that's a little confusing because Shariputra and Moggallana are the ones coming, and Lord Buddha is saying these two friends, Kolita and Upatissa, are coming. All right, we'll just keep reading and see if this starts to make sense. End quote. "When in the deep sphere of knowledge they had attained the matchless freedom in which there is destruction of attachments, then the teacher explained about them in the bamboo grove. Quote, "These two friends, Kolita and Upatissa, are coming." I think I said Upalisa before. Upatissa. "This pair of disciples will be my chief, my eminent pair." End quote. Then Shariputra and Moggallana approached the Lord. Having inclined their heads to the Lord's feet, they spoke thus to the Lord. Quote, "Lord, may we receive the going forth in the Lord's present. May we receive ordination." End quote. Quote, "Come, monks," end quote, the Lord said. Quote, "Well taught is Dhamma. Fare the Brahma faring for making an utter end of ill." End quote. So this was these venerable ones' ordination. Now at that time, very distinguished young men belonging to respectable families of Magad were faring the Brahma faring under the Lord. People looked down upon, criticized, spread it about, saying, quote, "The recluse Gautama gets along by making parentheses us and parentheses childless. The recluse Gautama gets along by making parentheses us and parentheses widows. The reckless Gautama gets along by breaking up families. 1,000 matted-hair ascetics have now been allowed to go forth by him, and these 250 wanderers of Sanjaya have been allowed to go forth, and these very distinguished young men belonging to respectable families of Magadha are faring the Brahma faring under the recluse Gautama." End quote. Moreover, having seen the monks, they reproved them in this verse. Quote, "The great recluse has come to Giribhaja of the Magadhis, leading all Sanjaya's (parentheses, followers) end parentheses, who will now be led by him." End quote. Monks heard these, who, three dots, spread it about. Then these monks told this matter to the Lord. He said, quote, "Monks, this noise will not last long. It will last only for 7 days. After 7 days it will cease. Therefore, monks, if they reprove you in this verse, quote within quotes, the great recluse has come to Giribhaja of the Magadhis, leading all Sanjaya's (parentheses, followers) end parentheses, who will now be led by him," end quote within quotes, "you should reprove them in reply in this verse, quote within quotes, verily, great heroes, truth finders, lead by what is true Dhamma. Who would be jealous of the wise leading by Dhamma?" End quote within quotes, end quotes. Now at that time, the people, having seen the monks, reproved them in this verse, quote, "The great recluse has come to Giribhaja of the Magadhis, leading all Sanjaya's (parentheses, followers) end parentheses, who will now be led by him," end quote. The monks reproved these people in reply in this verse, quote, "Verily great heroes, truth finders, led by what is true Dhamma, who would be jealous of the wise leading by Dharma," end quote. With the people saying, quote, "It is said that the recluses, sons of the Sakyans, lead by Dhamma, not by what is not Dhamma," end quote. That noise lasted exactly 7 days. After 7 days, it ceased. Told is the going forth of Shariputra and Moggallana. Told is the fourth portion for repeating. That's very special. The story of Shariputra's coming into the Sangha. I can't help thinking of the Heart Sutra. There's a particular version of the Shariputra, or the Heart Sutra, in Chinese. So I'm hearing Ni Hao Shariputra as part of the song. I'll play it at the end here in lieu of the usual drums. I will go ahead and perform the closing, though, first. Thank you for those who are still watching. If you're watching and you enjoyed it, do feel free to give it a like and subscribe. If you're on the YouTube and if you're on the podcast, welcome, and hope you continue to enjoy this series. To the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Until next time.